This is a picture of Captain Royce Williams, a hero you've probably never heard of, moments after he set a military record and barely lived to tell the tale. Hey guys, it's Uncle Scott here on the QwerkyReax channel, and today I wanted to start a new series that I'm going to try to do every once in a while called BOATS. It stands for Based on a True Story, and these are basically stories that I've come across that I kind of feel should be movies because they're so amazing and the people who are part of them are so incredible, or it just seems like something that everyone should know about, and I've realized that not a lot of people do. And guys, starting with Captain Williams was a no-brainer because ever since I heard this story a couple of years ago, I've been fascinated by it. It's a tale filled with heroism, patriotism, bravery, and of course, a perfect dose of romance, which is where we start the tale of this veteran Navy pilot. Decades before his 37-year Navy career, Williams was born in South Dakota, and then, as a preteen, his family moved where fate brought this hero, the Lois Lane, to his Clark Kent, or the MJ to his Peter Parker.
Met when I moved from South Dakota to Minnesota, and the first day in Sunday school, there she was. We were 11 years old.
They were quickly inseparable, and then years later, when he was training to learn how to be a fighter pilot,
the best thing out of that was I came back and I got married to my sweetheart.
He loved her dearly, but money was tight.
So I wasn't putting a whole lot away, and when I proposed while on leave, the best I could do was pin my wings on her.
He pinned his wings on her. How romantic is that? A few years later, during the Korean War, he was now officially a fighter pilot deployed to the war zone near the Koreas and the Soviet Union. On the morning of November 18th, 1952, he was sent out on a bombing run, which was pretty standard.
And I came back and they told me to remain suited, go get something to eat, and come back. You got the Combat Air Patrol next.
What he didn't know yet is that on that air patrol, he would battle in the longest dogfight in U.S. military history. So let me set the scene for you. It's him and 3 other pilots. So that's 4 American planes. They're flying Panthers, which was a common fighter jet in the U.S. military at the time.
And I'd never flown with any of them before. I think we were all more or less strangers.
And of course, 4 planes would quickly become 2.
Flight leader at that time had a warning light for his fuel system for the engine, and he was directed to take his wingman and remain over the task force.
So now it's just Williams and his wingman, and they're on patrol when they spot the enemy.
When I got to 26,000 feet, they split, 3 left and 4 right to bracket me.
7 Russian MiGs are getting into formation and are ready to attack him and his wingman. He radios back to the fleet, and his orders are return to the ship because it's 7-on-2. He's not going to win that battle.
In that turn back, 4 of them that had turned off to the right of the formation came in at my level in a loose formation, all shooting. I reported that and got instructed, do not engage, from CIC, and I said, I am engaged.
Can you imagine what's going through his mind when he gets that response from the fleet? Like, they're shooting at me. I'm already engaged. And as I said before, these are Russian MiGs. They are way more advanced than the Panthers that Williams and his wingman were fighting in.
The first guy I shot down, which was the tail in Charlie of that 4. At the same time, the other 3 came in from the other side, and no longer in formation. They were all broken up to take individual shots at me. The other 3 pulled up smartly. They went well above me, a couple thousand feet or so, and then reverse course, come at me head on.
So we're on the same page here. What he's saying is he shot one of them down pretty much right away at the start of the battle. So the other 6 fan out and get into a different attack formation to come at him individually, all of them shooting. Meanwhile, and I don't know if this is standard dogfight protocol, maybe a former Navy pilot or current Navy pilot can come through in the comments and let us all know, but his wingman follows the first guy he shot that's going to the ground, I guess to make sure that he's out of the fight or something. Regardless of the reasoning, Williams is now alone. It's 6-on-1.
So I switched over to the lead, who was the leader of all 7, this guy. And as I got around to aim at him, he was shooting. And when I thought I was in range, I pulled the trigger and he quit shooting and pulled away. I think he was hit.
Make that 5-on-1.
His wingman kept coming, and so I reversed over from the other guy, and we were head to head and in range, and I did the same thing, shooting. I think I hit him right off. He just kept coming, no maneuvering, stopped shooting, and just slid underneath me. I think he was dead.
It's now Lieutenant Williams, he was a lieutenant at the time, against 4 Russian MiGs. Better odds, but still not great. And if we frame this in terms of a movie, this is the isolating moment for our protagonist, right? We can show him dodging enemy fire, all while encouraging himself to just hit one more plane. And also he can get back to his love, his wife, that he's been in love with all these years since he was 11 years old. And you can just see it, right? There's a picture in the cockpit of her and that he looks down to. I mean, it's a very cinematic moment. But in reality, Williams said he didn't have time to think about any of that.
There was almost always somebody on my tail. So most of my flying was observing the guy shooting at me and maneuvering to spoil his aim. I guess the next thing that happened, one came down, and instead of that quick pull-up, he turned flat at my altitude, and I got right on him close. And there was just a short burst and pieces coming off his airplane. And I had to maneuver abruptly to keep from hitting him.
Okay, so he's knocked out more than half of the enemies that were against him when he started, but Lieutenant Williams still has no time to celebrate.
So the game goes on. Somebody else is on my tail.
Now, I've watched a few interviews and read a bunch of accounts of this actual dogfight, and somewhere in these last few minutes, one of the Russian MiGs bugs out. Maybe from not enough fuel, or there's a problem with his plane, or something like that. Williams never says he hit him, but what matters is the guy's no longer in the fight. So that brings us down to 2-on-1, which, by the way, is usually how dogfights are done. 3-on-1 or maybe a 2-on-2, but it never starts as a 7-on-2, which is, if you recall, how this one started, which is bonkers.
I had another guy, and I had him smoking.
What he's saying here is the guy was already smoking because he had hit him, and he was basically on his way out of the fight.
And I don't know why. I should have left him. My mistake. I straightened out and continued to shoot, and I ran out of ammunition. And I gave the MiG the opportunity to hit me. He came right in behind me. I maneuvered smartly to pull off, but he got me right in the wing butt with a 37 millimeter and knocked out most of my capability.
He's hit badly. He can barely swerve the plane to avoid everything that's coming at him from this one last Russian MiG, and he has no ammunition to fire back with. If this was a movie, you'd be on the edge of your seat. So would I, because surviving something like this just seems so impossible.
But I had a good elevator, so I had just to maneuver a little bit to head toward the clouds that I'd left and the task force under it, go home. And he just came around and settled in behind me because I couldn't maneuver except up and down. And he got perfect position, maybe 300 feet behind me, just pumping away.
He's toast, right? His Panther is barely operational, and this Russian MiG is just unloading on him.
But I just jammed forward, and then I pull it back, and it's going like this and this, and it worked. And I saw him firing an awful lot of ammunition, but he didn't down me. And I got into the clouds, and I was pretty safe at that point.
There was a blizzard at the time, which is what made those clouds such good cover. And in case you thought that I was exaggerating how significant this was, hear it from the legend himself.
This lasted 35 minutes, which has never happened before or since.
He has now survived the longest dogfight in U.S. military history. We can all breathe a sigh of relief, right? Whew. Right? Yeah, no, this story isn't over. That's not how this boat goes.
So I'm proceeding toward the task force by myself. And as I came in, they were all at general quarters, guns free. And so at that point, they're cleared to shoot at anything that they don't recognize as friendly.
Tell me this isn't exactly what would happen in a blockbuster movie. As an audience, you're thinking just like he probably was. Oh, sigh of relief, I beat all those Russian MiGs against all the odds, and now I just need to get back to the carrier group who start firing on him, the people he's trying to protect.
So the ships fired at me, but my commanding officer had just taken off with his squadron to relieve me in the fight, and he saw what was happening, and he called off. He's friendly, and they stopped shooting.
Oof. Okay, it's finally over, right? No, because he still has to land this plane, which is barely operational now, right? Because it's been shot to hell, and he's now got to land it. And this is when he realizes that he can't go below 170 knots without the plane stalling, which is just way too fast to land on an aircraft carrier. Thankfully, the ship is able to speed up, and he does finally set the plane down. Miraculously, he jumps out of the cockpit unscathed, untouched, not a single scratch on him.
I had a plane captain that was interested in all the holes in the airplane. So he got a grease pencil around and he counted 263 holes.
263 holes. Let that sink in. 263. There's barely enough surface area of the plane for there to be that many holes. I mean, look at this picture. That's him moments after landing, pointing at one of the larger holes, but also look around at all the other smaller holes you can see here. He landed a slice of Swiss cheese on that carrier, and shortly after they took this picture, they pushed the plane overboard as it was completely unflyable.
I got orders to report to Admiral Briscoe, senior naval officer in the Western Pacific.
Here comes the part about why you've probably never heard about this before, unless you know me, because I tell everybody about it.
I went out of there with the instruction to don't talk about it, and I didn't. 50 years later, an admiral that I'd worked with, and he came and he said, "Hey, Royce, that story that the Navy has isn't true. You shot down more than that, didn't you?" I said, I can't say. He says, "No longer classified. You can now talk about it." Holy moly. Well, I didn't have anybody to talk about. If this is long gone and forgotten.
For 50 years, he never said a thing. Taught at Top Gun, never told anybody about it. His brother was also a military pilot. He never told them. He survives the most insane dogfight of all time and never told a soul until they let him know it was declassified. So what does he do next?
Came home and told my wife, and she said, "Oh, Royce."
I can't with this guy. They've been married over 75 years and he never tells the love of his life, this harrowing ordeal that he went through, and the way he imitates her voice there at the end.
"Oh, Royce."
It's like the most sweetest grandpa thing ever.
Even after that, I didn't go around and toot a horn or anything. Nobody knew anything about it.
He has never asked for any special commendation or recognition and clearly feels he was just doing his job. He gave this interview a few years ago at the age of 97 and at the time had only received the Silver Star for this action. Last year, that was upgraded to the Navy Cross, which is a huge honor, don't get me wrong. But to me, this guy deserves more. There was a campaign there for a little while to get him the Medal of Honor. It passed in the House, but got held up in the Senate for some reason. I feel like they should try again because he stayed in the fight when the odds were stacked against him. He didn't head back for the fleet because he knew if he did, it would give away their position. And then when he finds out that it's classified, he never tells anybody about it. He never talks about this amazing, incredible thing that he did. Captain Royce Williams is 99 years old as I sit here and tell you his incredible story. And all I'm saying is, I think we should honor him appropriately before he soars off into that great beyond one final time. So that's my first boats vids, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. And, you know, I never ask you to share stuff on my channel, but this time I'm going to make an exception. If you think that he deserves the Medal of Honor or more people need to know his story, please share this video with them so they can see what an amazing hero he was. And if you think that this is a great story too, you know, leave a comment. Let me know that you think, oh, how is this guy not recognized for this, right? Also, I have a few more stories like this that I plan on doing down the road as I gather all the information I need to do it. But if you have one you want me to check out that you think is really interesting, I'm happy to do it. I always love reading up on these kinds of things. That's going to do it for this one, guys. My goal is to start doing them maybe once every month if possible. There's a lot of background work that goes into it though, you know, so I'm going to try. But if you guys dig it, you know, I'll definitely try harder to do it because it's hard to balance this with the movie stuff and some of the music stuff. But I think this would make an incredible movie. But I also think this guy deserves to get his just due. That's going to do it here for now. If you made it this far, you know I appreciate you. And like I always say, don't wait for life to be easy to be happy.